In reality, the light crews were simply waiting for orders that never arrived. You talk about a mess up right there. The abs yeah. The absence of the illumination meant no artillery fire, and the dark shapes of the landing crafts continued to approach the strait. The artillery remained silent as forward infantry utilized their 3-inch motors and Vickers guns. You'd think at that point the artillery would kick in. Two barges carrying explosives detonated, lighting up the area as they drifted towards their sister vessels. Many Japanese landing crafts made landfall on small islands where they established motor positions and machine guns, such as at Sarimbun Island, about 400 yards from the coast. Now, from these positions, they began to fire back at the coastal defenders. The first to reach the beaches were the coxswains, and amongst them was Private Kiyoshi Yamamoto, who suffered several shrapnel wounds to his stomach, chest, and right hand from a motor explosion. Despite his injuries, Yamamoto pressed on through the darkness until he reached the shore. He reportedly was seen collapsing, and he died after helping his comrades get up to the beach, shouting, "Tenno Heika Banzai." His comrades found him with his right lung protruding from his shattered rib cage. Oof. His uniform was soaked in blood.
Oh,
That's pretty gruesome.
brutal.
That's
Yeah.
Saving Private Ryan stuff. Yeah. Taylor's.
I remember some of the scenes. Yeah.
Yeah. Taylor's Australians in the forward positions were inflicting heavy casualties on the amphibious invaders. At 1 a.m., Sergeant Arya Mitsuo of the 18th Division jumped off from his boat with a second wave, and he felt a, quote, cold hand stroke his ankle. 9 corpses were floating in line next to him, heads upward, sending a chill down his spine. He didn't even know. Had they reached the shore? It was only then that Yamamoto succumbed, but not before he wished his Imperial Majesty a long life, as he had said his final Tenno Heiko Banzai, which Arya apparently heard. When he was retrieved, it was discovered, like I said, his right lung was protruding through his shattered rib cage, which probably scared the shit of a lot of Japanese who saw that. That's pretty gruesome. Now, some of Taylor's Australians inflicted considerable casualties on the first Japanese to land is beyond a doubt. Then I'm got another quote here. One sec. I have another quote here as Arya was the man I mentioned was hitting the beach. He had this to say about what he was seeing. 9 corpses floated in the water, head upwards, with a line each the other. A chill ran down my spine. Were they shot while they were crossing, or when they washed up, or after they had landed? I reflected, be hanged. Quick, I cut off a wrist or a finger of each of the dead men. Chop, chop, chop. Into a box. There's no time to bury them. Just a quick prayer. Rest in peace. Then forward. You must fire the Green Success rockets. Regimental command has landed. The sign for the 18th Division, General Mutaguchi Renya, would embark on the third wave across the straits. I forgot Mutaguchi was here. Yeah, it's true.
Oh yeah, I remember. I researched about him. He was the 18th Division commander.
Yeah, I forgot. So yeah, we got an earlier Mutaguchi.
We got the best and worst.
Yeah. So as Sergeant Aya fought his way through all the bodies, the Japanese had only managed to secure about a small foothold on the island. After a few hours, Taylor's 22nd Brigade was finding themselves overwhelmed, and they were beginning to fall apart. Although the artillery eventually began to provide defensive fire, only 8 of the 30 25-pounders were operational. Most of the gun crews were unaware of the situation until dispatch riders delivered the message, which often simply instructed them to, quote, bring down fire everywhere. The absence of any searchlights rendered the fire inaccurate and, well, you imagine chaotic. The sparsely manned defensive lines were breached, and Yamashita's selected Schwabunk proved to be an effective choice. The Australian position was doomed. Oichi Haruma, a machine gunner in the 5th, would remark, for the defending Australians, it was kill or retreat. For the Japanese, it was kill or be killed. Oichi also noted that a rearguard armed with Thompsons attempted to slow them down, but they were like rabid dogs as his forces pushed into the bush. The Japanese officers were equipped with compasses and instructed to disperse upon the landing, heading south or southeast to regroup at the damaged Tenga airfield. This airfield was situated between the coast and numerous swamps, with the village of Amakang located south of it, serving as a headquarters for Taylor's brigade. Consequently, both Taylor's forces and the Japanese were moving in the exact same direction. Corporal Clarence Spackman and his men armed with bayonets navigated through the swamp when they encountered a Japanese group, including an officer wielding a katana. Spackman charged at the officer, seized the katana, and engaged in brutal melee combat, killing several Japanese soldiers in the process. Now, like many other units, his company attempted to establish a defensive position wherever possible, slowing the Japanese advance throughout the night. By February the 9th, Taylor's brigade had descended into chaos. Most of the soldiers were caked in mud from traversing said swamps, and many had lost their weapons while trying to form new defensive lines north of the Tanga airfield. Bennett then sent reinforcements, including some units from the 29th. The 18th Company of Varley had retreated continuously after the landings, and they had just reached the village of Bukit Timah on the outskirts of Singapore City. Duncan, commanding the 27th Infantry Brigade, made the unusual decision to replace his battalion commanders within just a few hours. Lieutenant Colonel Albert Boyes was succeeded by Lieutenant Colonel Richard Oakes, and Blackjack Galligan was replaced by Major Ramsey. Duncan had disliked Blackjack, who had partially lost his hearing from near misses by a bomb, providing Duncan with finally a valid reason to dismiss him. I can't get into that. That's actually a whole story. If you read some of the memoirs of this period, there was animosity between those two guys. And Blackjack was really, he was a character, to say the least. That's why his nickname is so striking.
I think it's everyone named Jack.
Yeah,
Jack Churchill.
Jack Church. Yeah,
Not
exactly.
getting down there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Duncan's forward units covered about 2 miles of shoreline between the causeway and Kranji River estuary. At that moment, a Japanese bridgehead remained entirely west of the Kranji River, prompting Duncan to reposition his forces away from the shoreline and closer to the left side of the Kranji to confront the invaders. He chose to defy Bennett's orders, instructing him and his men to resist long enough to allow engineers to destroy 2 million gallons of motor fuel located in the Woodlands fuel depot just west of the causeway. Now, after accomplishing this, they would withdraw from the causeway area altogether, leaving only 2 brigades facing the river. This maneuver would shift the forces from a west-east axis, to a north-south axis, ensuring control over the Bukit Timah Road for a potential retreat into Singapore, the city itself, if the enemy gained the upper hand. Meanwhile, Nishimura, who was, greatly frustrated by the Imperial Guard's role, as if you think about it, they've just kind of been shoved to the side,